All right, so I'm going to walk through this project from beginning to end. This is the basic calculator project. All right, so you're going to have to watch these videos, whether you like it or not, because your quiz comes from this stuff. All right, so using what you've learned, let's create this calculator. Go to the website, log into REPL. This is how you would do it. In the last project, we learned how to use a print statement. Use a print statement to welcome the user. Okay, that's step 4. So I'm going to use a print statement. Well, first I'll name it basic calculator. That's just what I'm naming mine. It tells you what to name yours. Well, I guess you don't have to even name yours. It doesn't tell you that. I guess down here with your Google Doc, you have to name your Google Doc eventually. Okay, so it doesn't say what you have to name it. I'm just going to name mine basic calculator. So it says to greet the user. Okay, so greet the user. And we're going to do that by writing a print statement. We're going to say, hello, welcome to the basic calculator app. I don't know. This is just something I'm making up, right? Welcome to the basic calculator. I'll leave it like that. All right, that'll be the name of it. All right, and then that was step 4. Moving on to step 5. Ask the user their name and input function. Okay, so we're going to ask them their name. So it says ask the user their name. So input function, I'll say input, and I'll say, what is your name? All right, so that was step 5. Step 6 says store the user's name in a variable. I can store the user's name in a variable by just saying like name equals, and whatever the user types in will then be stored in the name. Okay, so ask is their name and store in variable. Okay, and what's next here? Let's look. And it says welcome the user using their name. All right, so I'll welcome them. Welcome user using their name. So I could say print welcome or I'll say welcome. Welcome and then space, and then I'll add on to it, right, by using concatenation, using that plus symbol there. Okay, and then saying name. Right? So if I were to just run this as is right here, welcome to the basic calculator. What is your name? And I'll say Josh. That's my first name. And it says welcome Josh. All right. So that was step 7. Step 8 says you ask the user to pick a number in an input function. Okay. So and I know it's going to have me pick a second number, so I ask the user to pick numbers and input, and I'll say enter a number. Okay. Okay, so ask the user to pick a number, pick a number in input function. That was step 8. Step 9 says store the user's first number selection. Okay, so I'll just call this like num1. Okay, you can choose any name you want. I could call it like number 1, or I could call it like, I call it X. I call it anything I want, but I'm just gonna say num1, right? All right, so let's see here. Where was I? Okay, store it. Store where you did that. Store it in a variable. Ask the user to pick another number in input function. All right, so I'll say input, and I'll say enter another number, and that's num2, right? So let's look back here. So num1, num2, I just did step 11 there where I stored it. It says calculate the total if you were to add the two numbers together. Okay, store the value of this calculation as a variable. And it asks me to add, subtract, multiply, divide, and then also store an exponent. So these are all those steps here, right? So as I collect that number, I need to convert them to integers because the computer recognizes them as strings, and which are not really numbers that we can do anything with. So we need to actually explicitly or purposely use an int function, okay? I talked about int functions in the other videos. But int functions basically take whatever the user puts, right? And sometimes you might get an error here, and it might be because like you didn't enter a second parentheses, okay? So you need int, and then you still need to enter a number. All right, so now we can do some calculations, right? So perform calculations. All right, so we'll call this like add total. You can call it anything you want. And we'll say that's num1 plus num2. And then I'm actually going to copy this and paste it. 1, 2, whoops, 1, 2, and 4 more times. All right, so instead of add total, this one will be, let's call it like subtract. Whoops. Subtract total. And I'll call this like multiplication total. You can name it whatever you want. So if like all of your variable names are the same as mine, then I know you just copied exactly what I wrote. You can name the variable whatever you want as long as you remember it. So I could call this like sub total if I wanted. It's up to you. All right, so we performed our calculations, and now we're actually going to, at the end, it looks like, so we did our calculations if we were to raise the power. Oh wait, we didn't actually do the calculation, so we have to say minus, multiply by, divide by, and then this one we just raise to the power of the second one, right? All right, so use your second number, store the value of this exponential calculation. We did that. Use a print statement to present the addition calculation result. So when you add the two numbers together, you get. All right, so I can, in this example, add total is a variable. All right, so here's what I need to do. All right, so I'm going to present the results. And I'm going to use a print statement, and I'm going to say when you add your two numbers together, you get, and then I'm going to concatenate it with the plus, make sure it's outside of the quotation marks, and I'll say add total. Okay, now remember, we took this as an integer, okay? We took the number, okay? Whatever number they entered, it was a string and converted to an integer. We now, in order to present it back to the user in a print statement that's already using a string right here, we need to convert it back to a string, and we do that, as I discussed in the videos, by using the string function and put str inside of it, and the second parenthesis closes this. If you're getting an error, it's because you need to include a second parenthesis here, right? It's because you have one open here, you have a second open here, you need two closes at the end. All right, so watch this. I'll copy this, paste, 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 and paste. And I'll say when you subtract your two numbers, I won't say together because subtract your two numbers together doesn't sound right. When you subtract your two numbers, you get, I don't get add total, I get the subtracted total from my calculation that I did, right? When you multiply your two numbers together, you get mult total, all right? When you divide your two numbers, and I'll take out together again, doesn't necessarily sound right, you get, and I don't get add total, I get divide total that we did up here. When you raise your first number to the power of your second number, you get not add total, I get exponent total, right? So let's take a look at this. You may add additional features to your program or extra lines of code. So let's run this first to make sure it works before we add anything extra, right? What is your name? Mr. Danza. Welcome, Mr. Danza. Enter number 4. Enter number 2 or 1. Oops. When you add your two numbers together, you get 5. When you subtract two numbers, you get 4 minus 1 is 3. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 divided by 1 is 4. And you raise 4 to the first power, you get 4. Let me use a different one. Let's say, let me run it. What is your name? Mr. Danza. Enter number 8. And another number 2. When you add them together, you get 10. When you subtract them, you get 6. 8 minus 2 is 6. You multiply, 8 times 2 is 16. Okay, 8 divided by 2 is 4, and then 8 to the second power is 64. Nice. Awesome. And it says, optional, you may add additional features to your program if you want to be creative. Like, I could say something like, this is an example of being creative. I could say like, let me think, right? So like, what is your name? Whoops. What is your name? Mr. Danza. Enter number 4 to, let me think. So you can add different things to the beginning, to the end of it. Notice I used comments just to organize. So to organize these things. So ask the user their name, store in a variable. I did that right there. So that way, if someone who has never seen your program before takes a look at it, they can kind of realize where everything is. So really the main parts are to greet the user, to ask their name and store it, to then welcome them using their name, okay? And then ask them to pick numbers, perform those calculations, and then present the results at the end, okay? So be creative with it. I know it says it's optional, but I would like for you not to use my variable names if possible. If you're just literally submitting the same exact thing and not changing up the variable names, I get that, but I want you to show that you understand what's going on, okay? So this is really me walking through the project. So if you have any additional questions, let me know.